At the far edge of a quiet little town in Texas stood a weathered cabin, its wood faded grey from years of sun and wind. That cabin belonged to Walter, a man who had seen more sunsets than birthdays in recent memory. He lived a simple life. Every morning he brewed his black coffee on a rusty stove, sat by the porch, and listened to the distant hum of trains rolling across the plains. The world had moved on. Faster cars, louder cities, fewer letters in the mailbox, but Walter stayed still, like the trees that refused to leave even when their leaves were gone. He did not talk much anymore. The radio on his kitchen shelf had stopped working months ago. He tried to fix it once, then decided the silence was a better companion. Sometimes he would talk to himself just to hear a voice, asking questions no one would answer. Then one cold winter evening, as frost gathered on his window, Walter heard something, a faint whimper outside. He opened the door. There, at the steps, stood a stray dog, thin as a shadow, shivering in the biting wind. Its fur was tangled, one ear torn, eyes weary, yet pleading. Walter stared for a long second, unsure what to do. He barely had enough soup for himself that night, but the old man's heart, the same heart that once raised children, once held his wife's hand under starlight, still knew compassion. He sighed, tore his bread in half, and placed a piece on the porch. "Come on, fella," he whispered. The dog hesitated, then crawled forward and ate slowly, tail flicking once, in gratitude. Walter smiled, the kind of smile that falls like the first light after a long storm. "Guess we both needed some company tonight," he said softly. From that night on, the dog returned. Every evening, just before sunset, Walter named him Rusty, after his old pickup that had not moved in years. Each day he saved a bit of food, sometimes skipping his own dinner to feed Rusty, and every time he opened that door, Rusty would wag his tail as if the world had finally made sense again. They became inseparable, the old man and stray. No one wanted. Rusty followed Walter around the garden, sat beside him on the porch, and slept just outside his door. In the mornings, they watched the sunrise together. In the evenings, they shared the fading light. Walter began to laugh again, quietly but genuinely. He told Rusty stories of his younger days, the farm he once worked on, the dance hall where he met his wife, the road trips with his son, before life got too busy. Rusty would listen, tilting his head as if he understood every word. Neighbors started to notice a change. They said Walter looked lighter, like he was finally breathing again. "Guess that dog brought him back to life," someone said at the general store. And maybe, in some quiet way, it did. Then, one winter morning, the sky hung heavy with grey clouds. Rusty scratched at Walter's door, but there was no answer. He barked once, then again. Inside, the old man lay still, his cup of coffee untouched, his glasses resting on a book he'd been reading the night before. When a neighbor finally came to check, they found Rusty lying beside the bed, his head resting on Walter's hand, eyes open but quiet. He stayed there until they carried Walter away, refusing to leave the man who once shared his bread. After the funeral, The dog disappeared. Days passed, weeks. No one saw him around town again. But sometimes, at dusk, when the wind runs soft through the prairie grass, travelers swear they see a dog sitting on the old porch, facing the setting sun, tail still, ears up, waiting for the sound of an old man's voice calling, "Come on, Rusty, dinner's ready."